because I mean, there are a lot of people who use it for fishing and everything. So, um, yeah, I think as
Nicole,
long as the aerators are on.
Nicole said we just had to turn it back on when she got ready to sell her house.
Oh, that is true. I did say that. Yes. Turn it on for that, and that's it.
You know, and the other thing I don't know that we quite touched on or did slightly, but there's at least four trees that are on the landscaping easements that the homeowners association is responsible for, um, that eventually will need to be removed, and some of them likely need to be replaced. But the removal alone for those trees is $4,000 that we haven't budgeted for. So if that winds up having to happen next year, there goes our amount that went into the reserve fund. So we were talking about, potentially having a neighborhood work day where, neighbors could come, and some of the trees, if they're not near power lines or houses or things, that we could do some of the work ourselves as a neighborhood to save some of those costs. But that 3,900 didn't even include the cost to replace any of those trees. One of the dead trees is at the pond, two are along VV, and one is right in between phase 1 and phase 2 in the tree line that is kind of in front of that industries that's behind. So that's also something to keep in mind. We've got that hanging over our heads too.
Any last questions on budget? Okay. I will turn it over.
Tim, is there any opportunity to, at some point in time, to start to see more than just 1 year of worth of trend on this?
Yeah, Mark, that's a really great point. Yes. This is a year that is such an anomaly, and I speak just from my own work experience that the 1 year trend is really hard to look at, right?
Right.
Again, and so from an increase standpoint, like, and guys, I'm speaking not as a treasurer, I'm speaking as a homeowner. The increase isn't great, right? I mean, I am committed to making this a one-time increase.
Well, I guess my question is things like the pond maintenance, right? Or our landscape expenses, right? Is it realistic to expect that we're going to be able to budget for $3,500 last year?
I think so.
When we only have 2 years of numbers to look at, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That is fair. I think there's been an exorbitant amount of spend on the pond. That again, a 2 year trend is not a trend. That is the big question mark. That we just I don't know, right? I don't know. We've avoided a lot of spend, and hopefully we don't see the amount of expense incurred that we've seen. But this year will be the defining year.
The landscaping, it is a 3-year lock-in on the amount. So other than outside projects or things like the tree removal, which would be a different line item anyway than landscape maintenance, but that will stay flat for the next 3 years, barring some, I don't know, they go out of business and we have to find someone else, or who knows, but and that's our biggest expense. So.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else on budget, then Mary, you want to talk about the next section?
Sure. So let's see, we've got just a couple FYI type information. Most of the, actually looking at who's on here, I think everybody's probably on board with that or knows, but there has been some talk on the Facebook page, and people have reached out to us about wanting to change certain covenants or different things about the covenants. I know this comes up repeatedly when people have an issue. But just as a reminder, it would require 98 of our 130 households to vote yes to any changes. And then there are associated legal fees with that as well that people need to be aware of before they would vote. So there's nothing right now in front of the board that we are, you know, considering making changes. But when people ask about it, or if people are talking to you, you know, just so that you're aware that it's, you know, it would require 98 houses to agree. And as you can see, looking, you know, even when it's Zoom and it's pretty easy, you don't have to leave your house. You know, there's just a handful of houses that participate in the meeting. So that's that. If you haven't been receiving emails from Elite, and I'm going to also have them add that to our annual letter, just that you make sure that your email address is up to date with Elite so that you can get their you can get emails on information that they're sending out on our behalf. There have been some questions about how complaints are handled, what is Elite's role in all of that. Again, I don't think anyone on here had posed those questions, but just to kind of quickly go over it. Elite does not drive around the neighborhood looking for things that are wrong. They're not out, they don't ever come out here. If there is a complaint, it either comes to one of the board members and we forward it on to Elite, or most of the time it just goes to Elite directly. So if we did have some issues this year with signs. Signs is a hot topic of the neighborhood. It falls in one of two things: signs and not keeping up landscaping. It goes to Elite, and Elite then emails if they have an email, or they will call if they have a phone number. If they don't, then they have to send a letter, and you know, we get dinged for a stamp in an envelope or whatever. Asking them or letting them know that they need to be in compliance with, you know, with the covenants. So the board isn't going around looking for people that are doing things that are outside of the covenants unless they, as a homeowner, you know, have an issue. They have just the same right as anyone else to reach out to Elite and have them address it. What we have talked about, because there's been one change that we are, I think, going to be making, is there were a few people who had gotten letters about their landscaping that were flabbergasted and took it out on Elite, I think, that couldn't understand why the letter was generated. And so, you know, they asked for photos of what the issue was. And so we did provide those. But I think going forward, if we get notified from Elite that there's been a complaint, you know, that a member of the board will go out, snap some pictures, we'll talk about it as a group, as a board, and then decide if it's something is in violation of the covenants, and then they will get a letter. Does that make sense?
We've taken, you know, I would say a fairly firm stand with the covenants, and instead of getting in a position where we have to allow one thing and not allow another, and so it's being more subjective, we've tried to be as objective as much as possible. So, for example, someone wanted to build a pool house this summer, wanted to move into the neighborhood, buy a house and build a pool house. Well, the covenants don't allow for that. So rather than change, you know, so the only option is is to get 98 households and pay the legal fees to get the covenants changed, or say no, or say yes and open up to everybody to do what they want. So we've, right or wrong, we've taken the stance to be, you know, as objective as possible by what the covenants say.
And the covenants do allow the board to make some, I forgot the exact terminology, but some exceptions, or allow some things. So the board did make a decision to, when, you know, to allow signs for the seniors and things that were graduating this year in the COVID situation. Actually, no one ever complained about them, so there wouldn't have been a letter sent out anyway. But we did decide you know, that we would allow that. Political signs, obviously those get complaints. And so those, you know, those are things that we address when they come up and people complain about it. So. And there was even one complaint about a sign that wasn't political, and according to the covenants, they weren't supposed to have it up, so they got a letter and they took it down.
Any questions for Mary?
Yeah, let's, a lot of silent faces.
All right, Nicole, you're next.
So we're looking for nominations for the board. We have two that are supposed to be leaving. We have Mary, the secretary, is supposed to be leaving, and Brian, the president, is supposed to be leaving. They are one-year terms. We have not been sent anyone who wants to be on the board. So we were looking for people who want to nominate themselves to be on the board. I mean, with being through elite now, I mean, honestly, especially not a political year, it's not a bad job besides approving a few things and, you know, landscaping things. But I don't know if anyone is looking to volunteer, but I'm not sure how we're going about that if we don't get any volunteers, if Mary and Brian are going to want to hang on to their terms or how we're going to go about that. So, but right now we don't have any nominations for 2021 unless anyone online wants to raise their hand up.
Brandon, Brian, Scott, you guys are up. Let's go.
It's a Harley teammates, huh?
That's right.
I mean, it's like I said, I'm gonna be here, so I don't mind staying on but if someone wants to take my place, they certainly feel free to.
Same. We had you know, normally every term is 2 years, and we were trying to alternate so that only, you know, there's only 2 new people so that there's some consistency going along. And, you know, we all started together. So we had thought that, you know, rather than 2-year terms for all of us, that one of us would drop off after a year. But again, if nobody is stepping up at this time, you know, I'm certainly willing to go another term, and then we'll just plant the seed for next time.
How widely have you guys been advertising the positions? I mean, I know with the meeting notice going out, there was a comment to that, but have you been, you know, reaching out? When I was on the board, we literally all kind of divvied up the neighborhood and we called our neighbors.
Yeah, we have not. And I think
I've reached out to a few people,
Yeah.
probably I'd say about 5 different neighbors throughout this past year, like starting in the summer, kind of trying to drop it in and giving the spiel, which I do agree with, is if each homeowner would volunteer at least once, we would be covered, you know, and that if you know, with living here, sometimes we do need to step up and do that. But I did not get any positive responses off of that. So,
I think to answer, you know, it's a good point you made there. What's your name again, Bridge? Lady
Meg Henke.
Meg. It says Bridges Library System. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I logged in with my work ID and it won't let me change my name in Zoom. So sorry about that. I tried.
Well, but you know, even setting up this meeting and giving notice and all those things, I mean, we probably could have done a better job. But I think that's back to having 4 brand new board members. Whereas Mary said, if you got some rotation, you got some continuity and stuff that you know. But it is what it is.
yeah, I think because we're all new, it's also just maybe we're also kind of started, you know, just figuring things out a little bit. And it's our first, I mean, I think for most of us, it's our first meeting for this. And so,
Yeah, certainly mine.
Yeah, and with COVID, I think we kind of, I don't know, I think a lot of us kind of, you drop the ball a little bit on, I don't know, probably interacting. I haven't interacted with a lot of neighbors recently. So as one of my issues.
Mhm.
All right. Don't see a lot of arms. You guys got the alligator arms going on. Any other comments then? Do we need to do a form, Mary or Nicole, you guys know, do we need to do something formal on that then, or?
We should, yeah. Everything's a little, yeah. Having to throw first of all, we had that we couldn't use the Merton Town Hall anymore because they're moved it to offices. So then we had to try to find a place that would accept us. And then we finally got date at Bristlecone when they weren't using it. And then because the governor's order, then that was canceled. So then we're putting together a Zoom, and, thank you to Chad for letting us use his work account so that we could have a Zoom and not have to pay for, pay because none of us had licenses. So, and we knew it would probably go over 40 minutes. So there's been a lot of punting on kind of how to do those things. So, but I'll nominate Brian for the board.
Yeah. Can we just real briefly, and I appreciate everyone taking the time, on a Wednesday night. Mark, Meg, you guys have been around this, right? I am interested. Brian, Scott, Brandon, Bertrand, Elizabeth, like, any questions? Like, this is the time to ask of the board anything that you guys have, concerns, questions, anything.
Thanks, Tim. I really don't have any. I just wanted to join because I have not in years, and felt like, with COVID, I feel like there were some potential changes happening. I was aware of the pond issue. So it was just more of, it's part of the duty of one of us to be in attendance. And it's disappointing that more people don't join when it's obviously so convenient to do it on Zoom. But to the point that was made earlier, maybe the social media outlet needs to just be plugged more, but also the tap your neighbor and just say, hey guys, join, because this is all of us that need to kind of come together to make the decision. It shouldn't be up to, a handful of people to call the shots on it. And I apologize for not being on camera. I just can't get it to work through my work computer. It just doesn't allow me to, or I would be. But I appreciate all of you doing this, and I might be in a better position next year to try to contribute in some capacity. I just don't have that capability right now, but hopefully in the future I will. So thank you all, though, for stepping up.
Joining us. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I'm not at a comfort zone to be able to take on a position like that right now with work. I travel a lot when things are going, and it just depends on what happens next year. The travels may be taking up a lot of my time.
Sure.
So what are the board positions? This is Meg Henke. What are the board positions that you're trying to fill? Maybe that will help people determine if they're interested in being a volunteer for a year or two.
Well, I was holding the president position, and then Mary was holding the secretary position.
Right. So it would be a secretary for 2 years, and then a VP for 1 under Nicole, and then they would transition to president the following year with whoever then would join in for the VP.
I'll tell you, the president job is the easiest.
I think Tim's got the hardest job. So
If anyone wants treasurer, like,
yeah, you're
but,
never leaving.
Honestly, you guys, we need involvement, right? We need community involvement, and there's a continuity that has to happen, and it's not about position. We need people to step up. We need people to be interested, and we can find a role, right? And if it doesn't happen now, we can find people in a few months to just get involved. And it is so easy. Meg, you had it so difficult, right? You had it so difficult. It is so easy now with Elite. It's not that big of a deal.
It really, it ends up being, what do you guys think? Once every week or two, someone wants to put in a certain landscaping edition, and they send their designs to Elite sends them to us 4, and we chat back. We just usually, I get okay. Yeah, it's pretty much
over email. Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of people painted this year, so, or
Yeah.
replaced siding. So it was a lot of painting and siding colors, which is,
Most stuff we're just rubber stamping because, you know, if they're improving their landscaping, why do we care? You know?
yeah.
But there were a few things, like I said, when somebody went to put in a pool house, and then the sign issues, that's been a little bit heated, but hopefully that's only because of election year. So.
Mhm.
That's typical. But yeah, we can always send something out or put it on social media. Maybe, you know, even have Becky send another letter out to email out to everyone, just seeing if anyone wants to step up for the 2 board positions and see if anyone wants to sign up.
Well, this is Meg again. And, you know, one of the things that if you don't have enough officers, then our association, quote unquote, goes into receivership, and then it puts every homeowner on the hook for anything that happens in our neighborhood. So if there is an accident or something like that, that party can sue every single homeowner of the subdivision when we don't have an active board in place, and our covenants fall apart. And I don't know if people necessarily understand what that means, and maybe that needs to be part of the message. As a past board member, I know it's a struggle to get more people to replace you on the board. It's tough. I served 2 years, and both terms I served with 2 different people. Nobody did a 2-year term except for me in the 2 years I was on the board. And, it's tough. People, circumstances change, that's all understandable. But, we need to really kind of have our residents understand what the implication means to them as a resident if we don't have a board in place.
Yeah, I had no clue until this past year that the reason why you had to have a board.
Right.
So.
So this is just a thought. Maybe somebody could reach back out to Kevin Fiedler. I know he had some personal family things going on in 2020, which is what caused him to step off from his 2-year term. Maybe he's in a position to come back for a year.
What's his name?
Kevin Fiedler.
So guys, hold on. We certainly do not have a quorum for this neighborhood, right? But this board is, don't let me speak for you guys, but we are going to continue as a board if no one else signs up. Okay, there has to be continuity, because Meg, your points are exactly right from an insurance perspective, liability. We have to have a board. The 4 of us will continue in our roles if no one else steps up. But we do have to draw interest from people. Okay, so let's just pause on that whole, this is not Armageddon. We will continue, but there has to be that next generation that comes in.
Yep. My humble opinion, but you need to provide an incentive. You need to say that people who are volunteering get their dues refunded for the year.
That hasn't existed in the 13 years that this neighborhood has been around. I appreciate that comment, but that's not confounded in any truth.
And then we have to make up the dues somewhere else. We have to raise the dues.
For 12 of
Mark.
the 13 years, Tim, MLG was the board.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not 12 of the 13 years, but I mean, I understand that, that yes, it's not a precedent, but probably for at least 10 of the 16 years we've been here, MLG ran the HOA, and so.
No, look, I don't mean to be flippant.
She's saying we've only had a board for 5.
I don't mean to be flippant. I love the idea, right? Because that is how we can generate interest. I'm not sure how we can do that yet.
I like the idea too, Mark. I've actually thought about it as well, but
I can tell you
guys.
I can tell you guys, when we lived in Kansas City, that's what they did in our neighborhood. The board members all had their dues waived for the year. But like you're saying, that means you have to find that money somewhere else.
Right. And I actually think, I'm going to double check it while we're talking, but I think it is in the covenants that the board members can't be
paid,
compensated.
Well,
Or I'm
like I
imagining
said,
it.
that's,
Yeah.
Hey, if someone
you're
breaks
looking
my
for
leaves,
covenant-
that's compensation.
if you're
Yeah.
looking for
that?
covenant changes, that would be one that everyone would benefit from.
Yeah, but that's legal. But yeah, you're right, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't, I'll look into it for sure. But I mean, at this point, we have 4 people and we have a full board. It's, I know Meg was working on a 2-person and board for a while because things happen. And so, I mean, I've been here a long time and this is the first time I've stepped up to serve, so I can do it more than a year.
Plus, we get all the free neighborhood gossip.
Oh, yeah. That's how you have to sell it. Or everyone who complains all year long, along with their letter, they'll get a thing saying, next year.
Well, is there anything else we need to cover in this meeting?
One question for Tim.
Oh.
Normally at
Anything else?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Normally at the in-person meetings, we would get a handout of the budget,
Yes.
the financial report. Given that we're virtual this year, are you going to be virtually handing out a copy of what you presented?
What I'll do following this meeting, I will have Elite send out the financials that we talked about. So if everyone's on that email distribution, great. If you are not, raise your hand, let me know. But we will send that, yes.
Anything else? Well, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. 7:42. Thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us and all your input. We really appreciate it. And hopefully
Thank
we'll
you.
see you out in the real world soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a
We
good night.
appreciate
Everyone.
we
you.
appreciate the job you're doing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
It goes unrewarded and unrecognized, but thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome, Meg.
Bye.